So this is Joanna here, and I'm doing another video on bipolar, but specifically on Olanzapine and its side effects, what Olanzapine does to you. So, how Olanzapine first came into my life is quite a dramatic story, but I will tell you that when I was finally taken into the mental health hospital, they found me a room. They sorted out a room, and I don't know how long it took. Robin might be able to tell you that. But I think it was probably about 5 or 6 people it took to inject Olanzapine into my bottom. So I had one person, well, 2 people, one for each leg. Then I had 2 people, one for each arm, and then I had one person to hold my head down because my head was thrashing around all over the place. And then probably another person with a needle to inject it. And I remember quite vividly screaming my head off at the pain, because if this was an orange and they put it in, it felt like they rammed it in really hard. So yeah, and anyway at that time your senses are so heightened that that just sudden shock was enough to make me scream the house down, or the mental hospital down. So I think everyone in the corridor and the whole ward heard me. So for about 2 to 3 days after that, I don't remember anything. It's a bit like a blackout. So it's like I wasn't even alive. I don't know what happened in that time. I was so sedated that I was probably just sleeping an awful lot. And I don't even remember going to the toilet. I don't remember eating. I don't remember any of that. And I do remember, though, the nurse or whoever they are in there sitting right next to my bed, literally right next to me, in a chair, reading a book or on their mobile phone or whatever. And after about 2 days, they moved about 2 meters away from me. 3 to 4 days, 4 meters away from me. And then, yeah, by 5 days, they were sitting just outside the door, and I could see their hands and their legs and their feet and their head every time they bent over. But I couldn't really, yeah, they weren't in the room anymore, but they were still there watching in on me and making sure that I wasn't doing anything silly, or I was still alive on this medication. And then a few more days later, I was getting up more, I was becoming more active, going to the toilet without help. I think I needed help to start with, because just walking was kind of hard. Pause. So I'll tell you a quick little story about a time when I was in the mental hospital, and it was lunchtime, and everyone had to go to this canteen area where they had round tables, and about 6 people round each table, and you were supposed to kind of get your plate and your knife and fork and decide what food you wanted and stuff. And I think that was a bit too much for me, so I think someone helped me with my knife and fork and put some food on my plate, sat me down. This isn't really related to Olanzapine. I think it's more to do with the fact that even though I was on those drugs, I was still having huge, just kind of effects of having been high. So I remember just totally just collapsing. So my whole upper body just wouldn't sit up. It was like I was paralysed. And from the waist down, I was literally, my head was nearly on the floor. And I was kind of, my head was right near my feet. And I couldn't get up. And I think that's just having been so exhausted from the manic psychotic episode, that's just one of those things, like, you don't have any of your own energy inside your body to keep you up and to do the things that you normally do in your life. And obviously this is right at the beginning stages of healing, if you want to call it that. So that was that little story. But now I'll talk about when I went back home. So after 3.5 weeks I was able to get out of the mental hospital, and I was able to be kind of signed off, even though I had signed my special pink form. I forgot what it's called. It's about the Mental Health Act. Basically, they want you to stay in there for 4 weeks, and that's your minimum. There's a word for it. Oh yeah, I was sectioned. So I was sectioned. I had to make sure that somehow I could get out of being sectioned and that I was able to leave. So anyway, once I'd left, I found that the general symptoms of being on Olanzapine were really kind of severe sleepiness. So I remember Robin kissing me goodbye to go to work in the morning, and I wouldn't get up for hours. So I would just want to sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep, and getting up out of bed was really, really hard, and I had to really force myself to get up and out. It was snowing earlier, so yeah, I'm getting a bit chilly. That's why I've got this on now instead. Cosy. So where were we? So sedation's the word, really. Totally and utterly taking the top off your highness or your psychoticness, dampening it down so much that you can't really lead a normal life. So yeah, walking up and down the stairs is a struggle, let alone trying to walk into town, or trying to have a conversation with a friend. It's like my eyes looked kind of half open, and your face kind of almost has no, what's the word? You've got no expressions really in your face. You're just kind of flat, just so flat, there's nothing going on behind, if you know what I mean. So that kind of feeling of lifelessness. Emotionless, is that really true? I certainly had a lot of emotions. I remember in the early stages on Olanzapine, nearly every evening around 5, 6, 7 o'clock, without fail, I'd have a full-on crying session. And I think that was part of me healing and just kind of getting out what had happened to me. And I'd literally I could feel it coming on. And my daughter was 1 year and 5 months old when this happened. No, maybe a bit older. 1 year and 8 months old. 1 year and 3 months old. What? Just tell me. My husband's saying actually she was 3 years old. Yeah, so she kind of knew something wasn't right at all with Mummy, but I didn't want to push it down her throat or show it to her all of the time. So what I would do is, even if we were sitting down for dinner, I would just take myself off up the stairs and go into my bedroom and literally just kind of cry it out until I stopped, and then I'd come back down again. But I think that was probably best for the sanity of my daughter, even if it seems a bit odd to shut yourself in a room and cry. I just felt that, well, me and my husband, we talked about it. We felt that that was right for her and right for us as a family to go about it in that way. I didn't need to show her everything that was going on. It wasn't necessary. So moving on. So seriously low metabolism. So much so that I think it was possibly that affected this other side. So you know how normally when you're a healthy human being, you eat food and your stomach knows when to stop. Your stomach knows when you're full. and there's the right signals up into the brain. It says, okay, you've eaten enough, stop eating now. Well, on olanzapine, I think that that particular thing was suppressed so much that I wouldn't know when I was full. I wouldn't get that feeling of, oh, I'm full. So I would just carry on eating. Partly because it kind of tastes all right and it's a sensation of some sort that I was having, some tasty food. Yeah, so I got overweight. So that's another side effect. Loads of people straight away put on loads of weight. So when I went into the mental health hospital, I was probably the thinnest I've ever been, and I think that is also normal. When people get high or psychotic, their energy's really high and their metabolism's really high, so they lose weight really easily, and it was just kind of, I didn't even notice it dropping off me. Like over time I was just getting thinner and thinner. And I look back to pictures of before I had my episode, and my cheekbones were sticking out, and I was very slim and I was wearing different clothes, you know, probably, yeah, I went down to a size 8, and I'd never been a size 8 before. On the bottom half as well, and I've got, you know, quite large hips, darling. So, anyway, what else have I written? Oh yeah. You probably don't want to hear about this side effect, but it's true. So because one is so sedated that when you're asleep, and that would be for much longer periods of time than you would normally sleep, so for me in the past it might have been 7 or 8 hours sleep, I was sleeping maybe 10 to 12 hours at night. But I would find that when I wake up, I'd have dribbled loads, and I think that's the sedation. It just makes you dribble. So I'd like have this wet patch on the pillow. I know it's horrible, but I was like, it's got to be the drugs, it can't be anything else. So I didn't used to dribble. So that's really quite nasty. So I kept a kind of hanky and wiped myself off and got out of bed and, you know, brush your teeth and all that kind of thing. So if you found any of that interesting, being on olanzapine, there's all sorts of aspects to it, and it is by far much more horrible than being on lithium. So I was very, very happy to go on lithium and come off olanzapine. In fact, maybe that's the video I should do next, is coming off olanzapine. The effects I had with that was also horrible, in fact even worse. Yeah, so if you want to know about that, click subscribe, press the like button, comment below, all that jazz. Bye!